SGA is easily one of my favorite young players to watch, and his playing style for a big guard is really interesting to break down. So as always, we'll look at his game under the microscope and check out some of the reasons why he's been killing it. So number one, at least statistically speaking, the best part of his game is actually his ISO play. And there's a lot to dissect in it, so we'll start here. Number one, because defenders sag off of him a bit, he's gotten really good at attacking them with that head of steam. So what you have now is a speedy ball handler with a head start, essentially racing a defender who has to move backwards from a static start. Most times that's a dead mission for the defender, who you'll see turn and sprint most times, leaving a ton of options open. And many times it even seems like he'll start further back behind the three-point line to gain some steam. Not to mention, if we look at the scientific equation for momentum, it's equal to velocity times mass. So when you have a bigger guard, the mass, who moves at really high speeds, higher velocities, he has higher momentum not only to absorb, but create contact better when he has this head of steam. So he gets a lot of buckets with this head start. And overall, he's just one of the best at blowing by people. It's pretty wild how much he gets all the way past defenders. Some of these even look like the defense isn't trying. But I think it's more so because you have a long 6'6" athlete who's also unbelievably fast with those first three steps. Most athletes reach around 50% of their top speed with these, but I'd say Shai gets to an even higher percentage than that. Plus, and this is probably my favorite part of his game, he's just so unpredictable. So his timing is really impressive, and he never telegraphs anything before he goes. Most players kind of stay in a rhythm and are a bit more predictable. You can kind of read when they're about to go, but he's going at some really unorthodox times where the defender isn't timing that explosion the right way. Which makes sense why probably his most used setup is this delayed between. So he'll be slow with that between until the ball gets to the other hand, and then he explodes and plays off of that. So normally you would speed up as the ball's switching hands, but for here he's slowly switching hands and then going. It looks like just another chill between the legs. Then next thing you know, he's out of there. Plus sometimes he'll even rotate and turn away from his defender, like how he's oriented to the sideline here, and then explode out of that to make it even more hard to predict. So it can get really unguardable sometimes. As you can see here, it gets pretty bad.
They had locked up that paint. Well, how efficient has Shai been? They put the key style on him. And SGA, boy, goes right by Thibault. No. Quarter. Harris is certainly one of those guys who
and physically, part of what makes all of this work is how he's able to reposition his feet in a split second to get in a great acceleration position. A lot of taller players have trouble coordinating their feet to always find a great acceleration position, but not Shai. Like here, that transition from moving backwards to forwards is very crisp as he scissors his feet to take off forward. And part of what makes it so impressive is the lower joint angles he's able to get into, even at 6'6". And this isn't him just leaning over, this is him really working into these deeper acceleration positions with that nice forward lean, almost like a track sprinter. Then when he doesn't get the perfect line to the basket at first, he's able to move damn near just as fast at those exaggerated curved angles around that defender, which again is a crazy advantage to have when you don't have that initial line. You also notice that he loves playing off of in and outs, another one of his go-to setup. I think this is one of those setups that he's just very comfortable exploding out of. And especially since he has a head of steam on most of these, defenders are hypersensitive, so it's easier to get them to jump and then come back the other way with it. Lastly, you'll see him using these hop counters a lot, where both feet hit at the same time. I love having this in the toolbox because you have all options available, and it's a really stable position and easy to time moves out of, especially when you're as good at it as him. So now let's talk his Hesi game, and this one type of Hesi in particular, mainly because it's just so unique. So notice the setup here. What actually makes this so dangerous is that he shoots well out of this, and does it pretty often. So this threat makes it more likely for the defense to fall for this. And he'll even size up that defender inside of the three-point line so he can hop back into it and make the decision off of that. And notice the patience here. He's not rushing back into it. He's actually giving time for the defender to make that lunge towards him. Obviously, he has the shot if they don't, but if they do, then he's out of there. Sometimes he'll even cut it short like right here and explode out of moving backwards before he gets back to the three-point line. All right, let's talk about finishing next, and we'll do it this way. We'll look at a few different go-tos and talk about why he does each of them so well. Number one is that quick scoop layup. Notice how quickly he gets that scoop layup out of his hand off the dribble. This is huge when you have longer defenders really trying to reach over and block that shot. Plus, having a 6'10" wingspan helps as he's really able to extend out past them. So this is a crazy good option for being unpredictable off of the dribble and something he's clearly very comfortable with. Number 2 are these hang finishes. Especially when he's going up even with a defender coming in at a high speed, he's able to hang mid-air and basically wait for that defender to pass or start moving downwards towards the ground, all while contorting away from them to finish. It's crazy from an athleticism perspective, but it's really valuable as it just buys time to separate and find that ideal release point for the finish. He's also great at splitting through really small spaces with these long steps around the basket. Number 1, he's more stable here, so when he really bounds forward, not only does it help him cover a ton of ground and sneak through these small spaces, by reaching out, he's getting in a really low, stable position that he can take some contact in and finish. Then next, his use of 2-foot finishes, or at least these kind of staggered finishes where both feet hit right after another, is really impressive, many times fully rotating into that finish. So he'll either turn his back to close off the defense, or he opens up and really extends out. Both are really good options. Then finally, many times he'll resort to these short jumpers, which is a great option for bigger guards. Watch how he creates the contact, quickly pops up, and considering he seems to be pretty confident with this shot, it makes it an amazing option for him. And I'll end on this. You know how some guys are just tough shot makers? I'd 100% put him in that category. A lot of these buckets aren't clean-cut jumpers, floaters, or layups that you can perfectly prepare for, but rather just tough shots that you can prepare for by becoming an adaptable shot maker. Nobody's going to practice this exact shot, but by training outside the box, you can start to inch closer to this. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. You've been asking for it for a while, so I'm glad I finally got to it. Make sure to follow me on Instagram at ByAnyMeansBasketball for how to work on these qualities. Stay tuned.